Now we're going to start. Good morning, good afternoon, good night. Dear all, thank you for joining us and welcome to the Our World Heritage 2021 debate and the thematic month dedicated to impacts on disaster and pandemics on World Heritage sites. I am Humberto Bonomo, architect in Santiago de Chile, director of the Cultural Heritage Center of Catholic University, and convener, together with Fernando Perez, Karen Gole, Yolanda Muñoz, and Hilter Gonzalez. We planned the seminar called One World Seminar. Today's session is called Local and International Community in World Heritage Sites and celebrates profound knowledge accumulated from around the world on how pandemics and natural and social disasters have affected and continue to affect our world heritage and its communities. Our speaker will kindly share their case studies, experiences, and lessons to allow us creating a vision about the state of health or disease of our world heritage. Throughout this month, we organized more than 20 seminars and conversation, a collective effort of more than 100 people, some of which from the most remote areas of the globe. Along with thanking all the people who have made this possible, from the central organization team of our World Heritage, the team of Cultural Heritage Center, and the Magister in Cultural Heritage of Catholic University, SIGIDEN, the Pontifical Catholic University of Peru, Federico Santa Maria University, ICOMOS Chile, the colleagues of Architects of Chile, and the Fundación Altiplano. I would like to thank also the coordinator of each session and the presenters who will accompany us throughout the month of May, because it is thanks to their expertise that we are able to discuss, learn, and share relevant experiences on World Heritage. For those who don't know our World Heritage Foundation, it seemed relevant to me to recall our aim, which motivates us to do the work we are doing. The worldwide purpose of the foundation is to promote heritage protection, conservation, and management, to support knowledge-based decision-making, to promote good governance of the World Heritage Convention, and to engage and empower civil society in heritage protection and management. Throughout this year, 2021, our World Heritage organized a series of 12 months of thematic discussion that addresses the critical issues of World Heritage conservation and management. Through open and online meeting, webinars, discussion, and paper presentation, we work to build the foundation of a policy platform to be presented at the World Heritage Convention 50th anniversary. Please note that our World Heritage provides this open dialogue platform based entirely on voluntary efforts. Having said this, I'm going to show you a small video that resumes this One World Seminar and the purpose of this month related with disaster and pandemics.
Recent disasters and an actual pandemic have exposed the fragility and vulnerability of our world heritage. These exceptional sites and pieces, which we would like to preserve for all humanity and future generations, do not exist in a segregated world. They belong to our social environment and our daily life. But at the same time, the World Heritage Sites are in danger. They are threatened by natural hazards that attempt against their existence. The pandemic has revealed their fragility and how much the human presence in them is vital and necessary for their survival. How can we protect them and at the same time give them life and new meanings? If we hope for a future for them, we should stop considering them only as beautiful objects or places, merchandise for the tourist industry, and fully integrate them into the social and cultural dynamics of daily life. We propose to promote a great discussion around the world on the risks and effects of disasters and pandemics on World Heritage sites. We invite non-governmental organizations, academies, representatives of civil society, and local governments to participate, to contribute with new proposals for public policies on the conservation and safeguarding of the cultural and natural heritage of humanity.
Now I give the floor to Mike Turner, that is part of one of the pillars of our World Heritage, that introduces the today's session related with local and international community of World Heritage sites. Mike?
Yeah. Thank you, Umberto, and the whole team from Chile. This is something which is really very special. And strangely enough, the World Heritage Convention started on the understanding of the issue of disasters, the issue of the floodings in Venice, and also the issues which were faced in Egypt with the Aswan Dam. So I think that this is really very critical in connecting our World Heritage, which is the roles of civil society. Article 5 of the Convention says it's not just simply the list, but it is to put heritage in the life of the community. If civil society are the first people at the level to deal and to manage then disasters and pandemics, they are at the front part, and it is this which is really critical in managing our heritage. So I think that we are looking also, this human resilience is an essential to putting heritage in the life of the community and managing the disasters and pandemics of relating to cultural heritage. Specifically, it is not just simply the destruction, physical destruction, but also the identities of people which are lost, and therefore rallying round issues like this is the way that we then manage and better protect our cultural heritage. The way forward of this resilience is through what I would perceive then as redundancy theory. It's a very interesting theory. In other words, that we actually have more than what we really need. This in the World Heritage Convention is called integrity. In other words, how much do we have to show the values? And this is where we need to be able to provide the integrity, which will then provide this resilience and part and parcel of the involvement of civil society. I would like to take this opportunity again of thanking the university and the whole team. It's also Umberto and every one of them for this exciting month, which we're looking forward to. But to open this discussion, I'd like to invite Giovanni Fontana, a close friend and colleague who has spent time in managing cultural heritage in areas of conflict and disasters. He headed the cultural section in the Ramallah office and was instrumental in preparing the nomination for Batir, which was the cultural landscapes of land of olives and wine. Later, he then moved on to manage other parts of the Near East, including that of Iraq and Mosul, and also Syria. And his expertise is absolutely very crucial for us to actually bring to the ideas of disaster and pandemics. But lastly, he also makes wine. And of course, without wine, without the calmness of actually winemaking, one cannot manage then disasters and pandemics. With this, I would like to invite Giovanni to present then our activity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mike, for the introduction. Thank you very much, Umberto, and the whole team in Chile, of course, for organizing this amazing, not only today's seminar, but this amazing month, the month of our World Heritage, with the specific theme on disasters and pandemics. Today we have 5 speakers. I'm going to introduce them. 5 speakers that will talk from various parts of the world about another, 5 case studies. The session today is entitled Local Community and International Community in World Heritage Sites. World Heritage Sites are increasingly the theater of the encounters between local communities and international communities. This is because of globalization. These encounters take various forms, such as the relations that entertain international tourists with local populations, especially through immersive experiences and responsible tourism, or the work of researchers and experts that spend prolonged periods in a World Heritage Site studying or working on the site for conservation purposes. Case studies from various continents tell stories of these encounters, from Colombia to the island of Dominica, from Sudan and Kenya to Azerbaijan, passing from Palestine. These stories narrate of a fruitful relation, although not always easy, between these 2 communities. The 5 case studies are from Colombia, and Professor Olimpia Nilio will talk about culture, heritage, and community. The culture house is Ambalema. Dr. George Okello Abungu, Sudan and Kenya, he will talk in particular about the Sudanese World Heritage Site. Engineer Hassan Muhammer from Palestine, he will talk about a safeguarding of the Batir cultural landscape. Architect Rizvan Bayramov from Azerbaijan, he will talk about the preservation of historical towns and villages in Azerbaijan. And Dr. Claudia Cancellotti, who will join us in a few minutes, she will talk about her experience in Dominica, it's a very small island in the Caribbean, about a subject taking action for post-disasters recovery of the tourism market in the Kalinago territory, rehabilitation project for L'Escalier Tête de Chien Heritage Site. Well, I would like to give the floor now to the speakers. I will introduce each of them probably before their session, their intervention. I would start with George Abungu, as he has a TV interview later on, and he asked me the favor to start from him. So, George, you have the floor. Thank you. Sorry, George, I need to introduce him. George Okello Abungu is a Cambridge-trained archaeologist and former Director General of the National Museum of Kenya. He is the founding chairman of Africa 2009, Scotia, CHDA. I mean, I don't stay long in his biography because George has an enormous experience in preservation and management of World Heritage. He was also a guest scholar at the Getty Conservation Institute and Getty Research Institute in Los Angeles, chairman of the Kenya Cultural Center, and also international consultant. He's been visiting lecturer and professor in many universities around the world, IFE Prize in Museology, distinction of Passé du Patrimoine by École du Patrimoine Africain in Benin, and many other distinctive recognitions. If I would read his biography, it would take me probably half of the time devoted for his presentation. So I would like to give the floor to George now for presenting his case study. Thank you very much, George. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Giovanni. First of all, as is our tradition in Africa, I would like, first of all, to thank Umberto and the University of Chile, Karen. You guys have been doing great work. And Giovanni, my friend, Giovanni, I've known Giovanni for many years. We've worked together. He's invited me many times to Palestine. And Mike, during my visits to Palestine, I went to Jerusalem a number of times to have dinner at your place. So we've been together for a long time. So thank you very much to reconnect again. Well, this particular discussion comes from a visit, a mission that I made to Sudan in October, November last year. I was invited by UNESCO to do that, to look at the floods. They've had a lot of floods that have affected World Heritage Sites, and to recommend measures that could be taken. So it really comes from that, and I would like to recognize UNESCO's role in that. Sudan is one of the largest countries in Africa, based in the middle north of Africa. Currently, it has 2 World Heritage properties. Please just stick with the first one. The first one is Merowe, that you see in the first slide there. It's a World Heritage Site, very interesting architectural buildings with Amun temples and with pyramids, with the rams, big and large pyramids, and so on. And then the second one is Jabal Barkal. Next slide, please. Jabal Barkal, next slide, yes. This is a natural mountain on the one that you see on the left-hand side. It was a mountain of Amun, the god of Egypt and Sudan, also associated with the Amun temple and also with the pyramids. On the right-hand side, you also see other temple associated, which are part of the Jabal Bakar. Jabal is basically a mountain. This is site of Nuri, also in Sudan. So they are very, very important sites, very important. Now, both are very much known for their pyramids, for their Amun temples, and for burials. And they have attracted scholars and researchers, and also treasure hunters for many, many years. They are actually managed by the government under the National Commission for Antiquities and Monuments, otherwise in short called NICAM. And the diversity, next slide, please. The diversity and richness of this heritage is incredible. Now, due to this, they have attracted archaeological missions, huge number of missions from across the world, from places like USA, Britain, Germany, Italy, Switzerland, France, Poland, and even Qatar, which has joined the team lately and has put a lot of money in research in this particular area, because Sudan was much more of a closed area, and now it's much more opening up. Some of these places, these countries, these universities have been working here since the 1930s, 1920s. These missions or archaeological missions excavate independently. Sometimes you find even 2 or 3 of them in one site, and they contribute to opening up the sites, developing, generating knowledge, good archaeological work that spans over 100 years. But at the same time, they also, in their own ways, create challenges in terms of heaps and mounds of material. Next slide, please. That they leave sometimes on the site. This is the site of Merowe. Part of it, you can see how, material culture is scattered in all over the site. At the left-hand side is a Amun temple, which is facing challenges from floods. And then on the right hand and the bottom one, you can see that you have a lot of scattered material from excavations from these missions. And below, you can also see some wetness that have come due to flooding that I'll be talking about. Some have also assisted with conservation as a result of their work and restoration, even if some of this has not been done in a very good way. Now, the other thing that I want to say is that the communities, on the other hand, in these places, do get jobs from these sites, the 2 sites plus other sites. Most of them are guides, so they guide you around, or are guards who guard the place. They are cooks. Actually, I was told that if I'd gone when things were okay, I would not have got someone to cook for me on my trip because the missions would have taken the person. And of course, other manual jobs, including assisting in large-scale excavations. And within the local area around the sites, you don't really find capacity building developed by these missions, except these guys whom I've mentioned. So a lot of work that is being done, professional work, comes from NICAM in Khartoum. But the community also benefit by making crafts, which then they sell to tourists who visit the place, and also they provide guiding services. Now, in one of the two sites located in an area, remote area in Merowe area, the locals have also benefited from water wells. They are wells for water because this is a dry area. So the museum, the site manager ensure that they can get for their livestock and also for their domestic. So a number of interesting benefits. And also the missions have also led to a number of Sudanese being trained to the level of PhD, masters and so on in archaeology and conservators. So that has been something, but the work is very much mission dominated and they monopolize the area. And there is quite a bit of competition even between these various missions that one can see when you visit these places. And sometimes they also do things in the name of community without much consultation. For example, one mission from USA, from I think the University of Michigan, built what they call a community center at the site of Jebel Barkar without consultation with UNESCO or with ICOMOS, and yet this is a World Heritage. And now when ICOMOS mission was sent there, their recommendation is that that beautiful building that is so misplaced should be demolished because it has interfered with the integrity and authenticity of the site. Another governor of Merowe also in the middle of the site of Merowe, the tomb area where you have the royal tombs, went and created a huge building claiming it was going to be a museum and a community center without authority, of course. And the last one is a site of El Kuru. I think I showed you one of the very well decorated tombs. That particular site, bang at the gate of that World Heritage Site, a governor decided to go and put up a commercial building, although it is now on the foundation level. There was a revolution in Sudan that took place about 2 years ago, and he was one of the people who was arrested and is now in jail. So that particular project stopped. But you can see that people just come up in the name of community and do these things. And all these things are done in the name of community without their participation, or let me say active participation. Now, coming back to the disasters, which is the main, and pandemics, which is the main topic of today, Sudan itself has suffered double tragedy in the last 1 year. The first one was the rise in Nile flood, Nile level. The level of the Nile has moved so fast. I think in 60 years, it's gone so high, to the extent that some of the sites that are close to the Nile are getting underground flooding from the Nile. The other thing is also you do have what is called the underground flooding, which comes mostly from large irrigation canals, which are being built because Sudan is semi-arid. So the government promotes water conservation and water use. So they have built a number of canals. And these have also created artificial environments. So a lot of these sites are now, if you go to the tombs and the pyramids, for example, in Nuru, you have a lot of floods and change of environment, which then affect the sites. And then there's the coronavirus pandemic that has also been a problem. Next slide, please. These are the floods you can see that did take place, and that is what is called the bathhouse, the building that you see there in the Merowe site. You can see how the floods were a major problem. So the coronavirus has resulted in the drying up of the tourists and visitors that visit these places, mostly dry places. And most of the communities depended very much on money that they got from guiding and from work that they had, selling their crafts and so on. And also the yearly missions of archaeologists who bring researchers and employment, the locals, have also dried up, leaving them very much unprepared because they over-depended on this for many, many years. This has been really a tradition that every year you have many missions going and providing these temporary works for a long time. On the other hand, the coming of the Qataris, which have been there for a few years, has also led to a creation of new infrastructure within some of the sites, particularly in Merowe, where you have state-of-the-art facilities in terms of new museum, visitor centers, and so on. Now, these things were built because there was money, and now they stand there, more or less not being used because they were not planned within a bigger management plan. So basically what you're having is white elephants. Now, and also at Merowe, next slide, please. One of the most affected sites was the royal bath. These are baths where the royal family used to take a bath. They're as old as the site. You can see the lower part, that is the royal bath where the bath used to take place. And you can see the water going into the buildings. Now, when this happened, the communities who depend here for these manual jobs and other how they're associated with the sites came out in large numbers to help stop this water. And truly, this is, I think, when the people around the site, including the site managers and the government and the missions, realized the importance of the community because they saw it as their own. They were not called upon, but they came out to help, to try and protect these particular sites. So in a way, the water was basically trying to bring the people together. Now, because of these problems, a number of measures are now being taken. Funding is being raised to address these issues. And one of the missions, the German missions, which has been working in this bath for many, many years, has decided to commit funding to carry out a study to address this problem and to once and for all create conditions conducive enough to deal with the issue of the waters, particularly for the bath area. So what we are seeing is the recognition of community, although late, in terms of their involvement in the management in the site, but both negatively and positively in terms of the problems that have arisen. So I just wanted to share with you this to say how sometimes we tend to do for the community without them. But at the end of the day, it is the community that should very much be part and parcel of the solution of these areas. And that we should be looking at longer term rather than short-term excavations and gathering of information to capacity building, so that even when it comes to problems like this, instead of bringing me from Kenya to go and address these issues, they could actually have their own people within the communities to be addressing these issues. So World Heritage should also look at issues of capacity building, of job creation, of poverty alleviation, and generally of making the community be the engine that drives the process of managing these particular areas. I think this is an example, a live example, because these problems continue and they will continue as long as the Nile is there, as long as the rains are high, and as long as the irrigation channels are there. And we have to look for problems to solve them. And we cannot do them only on a scientific way, but involving the community. Because by even diverting this water to somewhere else, you probably divert it to community areas where they're living, and so creating even more problems. So I think it is important to always think together and work together as a community in World Heritage, but also use pandemics and disasters as a way of learning and moving forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. George Bungo. Really, it was very interesting. I mean, I was in Sudan a couple of years ago, and I remember a country of very particular fascination, but also very vulnerable to this type of things. Well, one of the lessons learned from this first presentation is that natural disasters are often given a hand by humans who dig canals or build the construction where they shouldn't. And the issue, of course, of the rising of the level of the Nile River is also probably connected to climate change, which is a very global problem where humans are very deep, humans are very deep connected to. I would like to now to pass to the second speaker. For time zone reasons, I would like to give the floor to Professor Olimpia Niglio, who's talking from Japan, and of course is already quite late in her country right now. Although she's from Japan, she's now talking from Japan. Olimpia Niglio, who's Italian, worked extensively in Latin America, and she will talk today about a case study from Colombia. The title is Culture, Heritage and Community, the Culture House in Ambalema. Olimpia Niglio is a professor of comparative history of architecture and cultural landscapes and appointed at Hokkaido University, Graduate School of Humanities and Human Sciences in Japan. She studied at the University of Naples, Federico II, where she also obtained her PhD, Executive Master at Business School Sole 24 Ore in Rome, and a post-PhD in Conservation of Architectural Heritage. Since 2013, she's been Research Fellow at Kyoto University, Graduate School of Human and Environmental Studies, and Professor at the University de Bogotá, Jorge Tadeo Lozano in Colombia, and that's why she has a good experience of this country. I just also skip a bit her full bio that will be available probably on the website. She is Vice President of ICOMOS International Scientific Committee PRERICO, which is the committee which is dealing with religious sites, and Vice President ACLA, Asian Cultural Landscape Association in Seoul. She's author of many publications in different languages, mainly focused on cultural heritage between Orient and Occident. I would like to give the floor to Professor Niglio for her presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Giovanni. Thank you very much, Umberto. And I think also all my friends, also Mike from Israel, and all friends join us today. Thank you very much. Now I share my presentation. You see my presentation? Do you see?
Yeah, you can shift to full screen.
Full screen, exactly.
Yes.
Now, okay.
Exactly.
Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. So my presentation is dedicated to a Colombian experience. I worked in Latin America for my academic activity, and from 2009 to 2012, I promoted a local project to approach the community to the local cultural heritage. This project developed Culture for Peace because, as we will see now in the next slides, this geographic area is very complex for different problems. But during my work, an international project was realized in Tolima department with the title Abierto por Obras, Open Building Site. And this department is in the center of Colombia, in an important area, because there nature and cultural landscape are amazing, and the territory is very famous, especially for the cultivation of rice and cotton. Here we can see in green the cultivation of rice and in white of cotton. In Tolima, an important resource, in Tolima, an important resource is the Magdalena River. This is the principal river of Colombia, flowing for 1,500 kilometers from Barranquilla city in the north, also an important port for import-export with Europe, to Tolima department in the south. During the colonization period, this river was the first way to enter the country, and the first important port was realized in Honda, exactly in Tolima department, because from this point began the ascent to Bogota, to the Oriental Cordillera. In the Tolima department, along the banks of the rivers, we find a small village denominated Ambalema. There, the local organization is very complex because for many, many years, this area was interested in armed conflicts. Now, the situation is is calmer, but we know it is a delay topic, and the absence of the educational institution favors this sad situation. And I worked in this area to improve this situation, this social situation. The history of Ambalema is very, very interesting. This is a village very interesting, and different local writers and historians have analyzed the development of this village from the colonization period to contemporary. Today, we can appreciate especially the English period around to the end the 17th century, where this village was rebuilt after a fair, and all construction preserve today the local typology with the walls in earth and the construction in guadua, a special local tree, very, very similar to bamboo. And for this reason, I always realize a comparison from Colombia and Japan about this specific typology. During this is an original houses realized in English period in Ambalema. During the English colonization, this village was very famous for the cultivation of tobacco. And for this reason, at the end of the 19th century, to facilitate the connection from Bogota and Ambalema, was realized a railway, and in Ambalema also a station. This station, this is my, I told this photo in 2008, and in this period, this station was completely abandoned. This station was planned for Cuban engineers, and the reference was the eclectic style that arrived from Europe. This is on the left, this is the warehouse of the rail station, and on the right, this is the old railway. But from 2009, I started this project, Abierto por Obras, with the University of Ibagué, where I began the first class in architectural restoration. And in these years, I worked very hard with the students and especially with the community, the local community, for approaching the people to the type, to the local cultural heritage and to enhancing of this ancient station. This is some picture with my students during the first class in Mbalema. The project, Open Building Site, allows us to start an important educational project with the local community for understanding the value of the site, of the local cultural heritage, and also about the ancient station. After many years, in this photo, we can see an exposition with many different solutions for restoration of the station with my students and some professors. After many years, the local community understood the importance of this construction, and in collaboration with the Ministry of the Culture in Colombia, with the University of Ibagué in Tolima department, but especially in collaboration with the Ministry of Infrastructure in Diaz, was possible to start the restoration work of this station. Also here, other picture with colleagues and the students during the classes in Mbalema. Here we can see some picture during the restoration work with the community. The aspect very, very interesting has been the collaboration of the many peoples of the local local community to the restoration of this station. The main purpose was the community, really, of this project. Indeed, the function of this site was decided by the community. And after the restoration, the station was destined to the houses culture, where all people this is the station after the restoration. Here, two picture after the restoration and before the restoration, sorry, and after the restoration. And here, photo with the people, because where all people in this today in this site can organize events, cultural meetings, classes for the community, exposition, also fairs about the local products. Here we can see different solutions of these events, even cultural events, education classes, meetings, specific also with the students of the university about this different solution to restore also other construction in Mbalema. Today, the station needs also exposition, sorry, another picture. But today the station needs a maintenance project, and now the local community is working on it. And I also continue to follow this project from Japan. This project has been very important to understand the value of the culture for social inclusion and also for the development of local cultural policies. This experience has been very important to start also other similar projects in other countries in Latin America. At this moment, I am collaborating with the Ministry of Culture in Lima, in Peru, where we are promoting an educational project to approach the community to the local heritage between the centrality of the people to preserve our heritage is very, very important. I suggest you also to read some articles and documents in the ICOMOS website, because there are many important documents about the centrality of the community and the dialogue with the cultural heritage. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Olympia. It was very interesting. It is really paramount, the importance that the community, local community, places in the conservation, also documentation and preservation of heritage, because for too many years we forgot that communities are really at the core of any conservation project. I mean, Mike Turner was reminding us as the World Heritage Convention, actually since 1972. I mean, the original text of the convention is really placing a lot of importance to the community as a really key element for the success of any intervention. Thank you very much for this enlightening project that you're still in the studio, still following up from Japan, and I wish really all the best for its continuation. Now I go back to the program, and I would like, Dr. Cancellotti, Claudia Cancellotti just told me that she is finally joining the session, but I will give her some time to, of course, to set up a screen and her computer. So I would like to give the floor to Engineer Hassan Muammer, if he's there and ready, who will talk to us about Palestine. The title, I chose the title for him, Safeguarding of the Batir Cultural Landscape, but maybe he will give us a more insightful atmosphere about this project. It's a project, this one, that I started together with him and with many others. Also, Dr. Cancellotti was involved in this program in Palestine years ago, and Michael Turner also was very instrumental to safeguard the site from his threats. I would like to give the floor to Hassan Muammer. I just give a few words, tell a few words about him. He's architect and civil engineer from Batir village near Jerusalem, and he's one of Palestine's leading environmental advocates. And this is very important, probably more important than for him being a civil engineer. He is graduated from October 6th University in Cairo, trained by UNESCO himself as a terrace conservation specialist, and he dedicated several years of his professional career with success to the safeguarding of this cultural landscape in Batir, working closely with the Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities, as well as with international organizations. He worked for Palestinian Organization for the Preservation of Historic Bethlehem, and more recently also with the World Bank for the development of hiking trails in Saudi Arabia. I'm really, really pleased to give the floor to Hassan, to whom also I wish Ramadan Kareem, because he's fasting in this period for another maybe 1 week, more or less, until the Eid will be celebrated. Hassan, you have the floor. Thank you.
Giovanni, I think I have a technical problem playing the two videos together. Just give me a second.
Try now, Hassan, to share.
So you will start with presenting a video, right?
Okay, now I'm just on it. Thank you very much, Giovanni. Thank you everyone for this opportunity, allowing me being here today with you all. I would like to start my presentation with a small brief about what's happening today in Batir and what's happening during the pandemic and what's happening all over the world after the past year of the COVID-19 issues, that I think it made a sense for the whole world to have some taste of what's going on for the past 72 years of occupation in Palestine. The cultural heritage preservation under occupation situation all the time is giving us this urgent emergency alarm all the time for the people to be worried about what next. I would like to share with this screen with you over here the new picture I just gained a few days ago. It shows one of the bulldozers that has been damaging one of the terraces at the entrance of my village. That you can see it by like a new bypass road. That recently there is a big increase of this kind of constructions by settler attacks, by soldiers movement all over the area, where they're trying to take over and confiscate these areas. This just happened recently, and it was really increased in the past few months during the pandemic. This where it put us as a Batiri citizens in a very crucial situation, and how to manage a World Heritage Site under such a circumstances, and how to manage such a situation where this picture, the one I'm just now keeping in now for you, this is part of the core zone of the World Heritage Site, the ancient terraces of Battir, where you can see part of the vineyards, and you can see one of the ancient farmers' watchtowers over here. That's happening, and that the expansion of the new excavations of Road 60, for example, which is a bypass road links between Jerusalem to some settlements of Gush Atzion around us, has damaging all this beautiful landscape and this important value of the area that we've been trying so far for years now to preserve, and where it was for us like a treasure have been highlighted to create a World Heritage Site that will be spoken about to the whole world. Today, after Giovanni, after 12 years of this hard work, we gained to the same 0 point of preservation, if I would call it, with these actions that it's happening now in Palestine and in Battir specifically. And this is a very frustration situation for us, that after the long progress of preservation and mapping program that we've been done, documenting every single dry stone wall or every single olive tree that we've been there, trying to preserve the area, to present something explaining the situation about Palestine and the culture and the heritage of Palestinians to the world, then we just get that negative impacts, unfortunately. I would go back to Battir now. I wanted to start my presentation with what's going on nowadays, and this is for me is another way of the pandemic, another impact of the pandemic, because occupation is a pandemic too. So we in Palestine, we are facing 2 pandemics. We're facing the COVID-19, and we are facing all what I'm showing you right now. That was like one important thing I wanted to share with you. One more thing I would like to go forward with is the activities and the work that the team and the local community of Battir has started with the very early stages of the preservation progress that the community did with the UNESCO project in between 2005 actually to 2014, when the site was nominated as a World Heritage Site. These were made Battir as a destination located southwest of both Bethlehem and Jerusalem an important area to be presented, and presenting the Palestinian cultural landscape and the Palestinian cultural heritage, where it become a new subject to be spoken about from a Palestinian's point of view, and from a location that Palestinians really take care of, and just preserve and explain to the world. So my position and my work in Battir was how to highlight the value of all these elements that we've been trying to preserve for several years with the team that we work together with Giovanni, starting from like a crash phase with mapping and documenting every single thing that we started from a very tiny level all the way until where we start to produce our own maps. And this is where I would like to share this right now with you. And this is where I would like to talk about like the heritage and the history and the culture of Battir, where we started this project years ago. I think I have a problem with the changing the slide from my device. Okay. So when we just started documenting all what you see, what I'm trying to quickly pass through the slides, but the most important thing that we start documenting is how to understand the situation on the area between Jerusalem and Bethlehem, in the area where Battir is highlighted in this hatched area, and how the impacts of the separation wall and all the settlements expansion will impact on the ground on the area. This is where the natural and cultural landmarks landscape plan started as a project that we all together worked on to start getting up a new understanding of the map use, of the land use, of the transformations of landscape, and what's the values that we need to preserve as a cultural heritage elements. So these pictures and these slides that I'm sharing here quickly, because of the limitation of the time that I'm having, is part of the result of what we were trying to understand to present. So this is one of the maps that present the dry stone wall system or masonry system that shows the whole terraces area spread all over Battir with a distance more than 554,000 linear meter, which is a big value, dates back to the Canaanite period or even before, where the people preserved until nowadays. And this is where it opened our eyes on the whole area to start designing the historical trail or the old paths of the farmers that used to connect between Jerusalem and Bethlehem to Jaffa to start being the new hiking trails as part of the first eco-museum in the area, and how people could use it for a future and could use it to promote the ecotourism in the village. This were like part of the elements and the natural and cultural landmarks that we start looking on and trying to preserve and to highlight all these elements, and how it could be part of the project that we want to create Battir as a destination for ecotourism and community-based tourism. That actually we started that within the past few years, creating new facilities for people where they can come, enjoy and stay in Battir and experience the culture and the daily life of the community there. What we faced during the pandemic is a shutdown totally of all these activities, that people were actually are not allowed to come and have an access because of all what has been going on all over the world. But this is actually didn't prevent us from putting some plans on what to develop next, on how we could preserve or think about new hiking trails, for example, and how we could put new proposals and new plans for new areas that we could do like this similar project that I'm trying to show you here, and how to renovate part of these hiking trails, and how without having any impact on the ground or harming the landscape. That was part of the things, or the new planning that we were thinking of, and how to create a new project that would benefit the community after the pandemic, and how it will be a tool for the people to revive their life back in the future. These were parts of the photos, and I'm trying to share quickly just to show you an idea of that. And this is where one of the things also I wanted to highlight. This is one of the first plans that we were trying to understand, and how the geopolitical situation is gonna impact on the ground, and what is gonna be the results if, for example, the separation wall will gonna be constructed, and how that will affect the plan of the preservation that we have been sitting for a while, and how it will get that. So I will use this map, for example, where today you can see this highlighted area over here as part of the core zone of the World Heritage Site with this shape. It's now the confiscated land that the first photos I showed you of the settlers and the soldiers were coming over to confiscate these lands without respecting any land ownership or UNESCO regulations or international rules or regulations to prevent this. And it's happening now that this area now is under a big attack by all what's going on from the excavations and expansion of the new road, of Road 60 and so on. And from here, I would like to show you also some other pictures that it was also captured a few days ago or a few months ago for some different locations, where are other actions that are really affecting the landscape and the cultural heritage of the landscape, and where we are trying to me and a bunch of a group of the people in the village prevent such an actions. And one of the big elements, or one of the big achievements that we have gained of this, the last slide I'm going to share with you today, which was the big achievement of the community of Battir, and how to prevent the construction of the separation wall, that you could see the projection of it, where this was the achievement that we are trying to preserve nowadays, away from the political situation, preventing the separation wall, and also giving a good example for the whole world about Palestinians are trying to use the cultural heritage on preserving their life and their resistance. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Hassan. Well, I think this case in particular is, always raising a lot of questions, a lot of reflections. I was not personally, as you know very well, involved in the latest developments in the area, but Michael Turner, who's here, also mentioned to me something in a few meetings we had some time ago. Well, we have to consider that the pandemics in this case is adding a layer on top of another layer of complexity, and this is something that is really exposing our World Heritage sites, or more generally natural and cultural heritage in the world, to an extra expression of threats, an extra level of threats and risks and hazards. Well, I would go to the next speaker now, and maybe we'll leave the discussion to the end for this type of questions. I would give the floor now to architect Rizvan Bayramov from Baku. He will present his case study. Is titled Preservation of Historical Towns and Villages in Azerbaijan. Architect Rizvan is associate professor at the University of Architecture and Construction in Baku. From 2001 to 2011, he was head of the Department for Cultural Heritage at the Ministry of Culture and Tourism. And since 2011, is teaching architectural construction at bachelor courses and modern technology for preservation of cultural heritage at master level. He's also senior advisor of the Minister of Culture and Tourism for World Heritage related matters in Azerbaijan. An example, he worked on the Gobustan Rock Art Cultural Landscape, and more recently on the historic center of Sheki with the Hans Palace. I would like to give the floor to Rizvan and also to wish him Ramadan Kareem, also because in Azerbaijan is now the holy month, which will end in a week with the celebration of the Eid. Thank you very much. Rizvan, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Giovanni. Nice to see all of you. Thanks for this chance to be in front of you and to talk about the preservation of the sites in my country. It really is a great honor personally for me. And I would like to know, have you seen my screen or not? Have you seen my screen?
No.
No, then I open the screen.
No.
Okay, I open the screen again. Now, yes,
now,
okay.
Yes.
Yes, that's okay.
Yes, okay. But it's possible.
Yeah, and as you know, the pandemic, COVID pandemic reflected in all the world in all countries, but in spite of that, of course, it was reflected to the site visitors, but
put your presentation in full presentation. Sorry.
Yeah. And I will be short. Just I would like to talk to you, to discuss with you how we could preserve our heritage. And now just you have seen the ancient settlements, the 5th, 6th millennium before the Christ. And it doesn't matter, again, I said that in spite of that, the pandemic archaeologists is worked and sites were conserved. And these sites was under excavations, and now we are going to close sites with some kind of the modern architecture's canopy. And this is old Shamkir city's walls, also some years unexcavated. And now we are going to complete the conservation of the ruins of the wall. And it was approximately more than 10 years ago, the 10 historical towns of Azerbaijan was included to the pilot project of the Council of Europe, rehabilitation of cultural heritage and historic towns. And unfortunately, this project was not so successful. And now you see the pictures of the Sheki city is already included to the World Heritage List 2 years ago. And we worked with the local communities a lot in this city. And now already the local community understood how is necessary, and they know the value of the preservation of the heritage. And finally, they understood that how the preservation of heritage reflected on the benefits. And this other small town, also under the preservation, you see the the parks, beginning of the 20th century, and the old hammams. And Shemkir is an old town, and on the beginning of the 19th century, the Germany's population moved from the Germany to Caucasus, maybe, you know, and they stayed at Shemkir city. And, you know, you have seen now the Shemkir, in Shemkir, the Germans' populations, the dwelling houses, and now there is no German population in Shemkir because they were moved during the Second World War. But in spite of that, all the German heritage under the preservation and under the protection of state. And now you see the German Lutheran Church in other small town, Gögöl town. And also you see just a church under the restorations. And this is a small villages of Ilisu. Also now this the special the reserves and under the protections. And I mentioned that what is necessary to do for the preservation of the small towns and the historical villages in Azerbaijan. And as I said, in spite of the pandemic, now some conservation and rehabilitation works is going. For example, this Vikhnalek village is located on the mountain area. You see, is the top on the mountain, more than 2,000 meters. And now we are preparing these sites nomination this year for including to the World Heritage List. And this another mountain villages, Lagich, that again, in spite of the pandemic, we're doing some restoration works in this village. And now we are preparing some restoration projects for coming works. And you see this mosque, and now I did these peaks just only months ago. Now, as you see, the mosque under the restorations. And the other mountain village, the Baskal village, we also worked at this village. And you see just, it was an old building, now is reconstructed and rehabilitating for local communities, and they will use this building for development of the local handicrafts. And again, this village Baskal, and you see now the old bath house, the hammam, and the restoration works. This is a Gala village close to Baku city. Some years ago, we just finished some restoration work, and you see, and arrange the beautiful open area museum in a village. This museum in a village. And this is other mountain village, Saribash, where also some preservation works is going. And this is an ancient Albanian church. As you see, it was fully restored. And now we are using this Albanian church like the museum, and you see the interiors and the courtyard of the church. And just I mentioned what is necessary to do for preservation of the villages, historical villages and the small towns in my country. And I would like to show my personal opinion to your expertise. And you see, it seems to me first of all, we have to analyze and update of the existing juridical base if it's required, and preservation of environments and landscape, this is also necessary. And then preservation of historical settlements together with the building and structures, and the social and economic development. We have to improve of social condition of population by the involving them to preservation of historical and cultural properties. Now they already understood that it's necessary, and to make conditions for revival and development of traditional kinds of economy, we have to develop the local handicrafts and local economy. And finally, the development of cultural tourism in historic towns and villages, and preparing of special program for these tourisms. And now I would like to especially mention, as you know, the part of Azerbaijan, the 20% of Azerbaijan was under the occupation during the 27 years. And finally, some months ago, on the November, my country were liberated and returned back to this land to indigenous people and rightful owner. And in spite of that, just you know well what means the heritage under the war conflict area, but most of villages and the small towns, and believe me, the heritage fully destroyed. And just but in spite of that, we started to restore and to rehabilitate this just liberated area. And you see this urban city, you see fully, as you see, the city fully demolished, it's just, you see, fully demolished, and you see the peaks of the mosque where they kept the animals. And this Shusha city, the small city on the top of mountain, and this is a cultural center of Azerbaijan. Also, you see the fully demolished. You see the ruins of the city during what happened. You see just what happened with the Shusha city during the occupations. And just you see the old palaces. You see it's a quite big palaces fully demolished, just only the ruins. I did these pictures on the beginning of the match, therefore is snowing. And in spite of that, as I said, now we started to restore and our monuments. You see just one small dwelling houses and the mausoleum of the Azerbaijan poet Vagif. You see they are under the restorations. And finally, I would like to say, you see these peaks. I did these pictures also in the mountain areas, and we are working for them. And we have to preserve our heritage for the future. And thanks for your attentions. I'm staying at your disposal for any kind of question.
Thank you very much, Rizwan. Thank you really very much.
Thanks for you, Giovanni.
Yes, also in this case, we see how the forces of nature, but also the interaction with humans is really essential for the preservation or for the destruction of our world heritage, with or without the world, our heritage. It's really important. Well, the situation in the Nagorno-Karabakh region is certainly of high concern. It was It came to the Chronicle again in the last few months. Fortunately, now the conflict has stopped again, and we hope that the technicians and the institutions will be able to restore and rebuild the cultural heritage, and also safeguard the natural one. The discussion will also focus on this during the question and answer time. And thank you, Rizwan, again. I would move now to the last intervention, the last case study. I present the speaker, Dr. Claudia Cancellotti. She will talk about Dominica, which is a small island, probably one of the smallest islands in the Caribbean. She will talk about the Kalinago community, the Kalinago territory, which is one of the local indigenous communities remained in the Caribbean. Dr. Cancellotti, also this was made to differentiate a bit the type of presenters, is a PhD researcher in music anthropology and a professional violin teacher and performer. Between 1999 and 2004, she did the field research and action research on contemporary Bushman musical and ritual practices in indigenous communities in Namibia, Botswana, and South Africa. From 2002 to 2004, she worked as assistant to the artistic direction of the International World Music Festival, Suoni del Mondo, World Sounds, organized by the University of Bologna. And then from 2007 to 12, she worked in Palestine, first teaching violin at the National Conservatory of Music in Ramallah and Bethlehem, and then participating as a research and project manager also in the UNESCO initiative for the safeguarding of the cultural landscape of Batir that we saw a few minutes ago, presented by Hassan Moammer, which was in the 2011 awarded the International Prize for the Preservation of Cultural Landscape, entitled to the former Greek Minister of Culture, Melina Mercouri. She's also a freelance consultant, and in this capacity, she participated with the University of Florence in a couple of missions to the Caribbean, Barbados and Dominica, where she developed this cooperation with the Kalinago community. She is currently working, and she's the Chief Operating Officer in the Archimedia Trust Onlus, where she's also Program Director for Intangible Heritage and Performing Arts. I would like to give the floor now to Claudia, to Dr. Claudia Cancellotti, who will present the case study from Dominica. She asked me to share the screen.
I'm not sure. Yeah, sorry. I'll try to do
later, and she could not. There is one screen already shared.
Yeah, I'm trying to set it. I've never done it on Zoom, so I'm trying to see if I can manage. But
if you are administrator of the call, probably you can do it, right? I guess so.
But I really don't know. Ask me to secure it. Maybe it's easier if you do it. I apologize.
We have Hilter Gonzalez here who can maybe help. Hilter?
Now Claudia is co-hoster, so...
Yeah, now she's co-host, exactly. She couldn't do before. Exactly.
Yeah, right.
Thank you, Karen.
You're welcome.
Yeah, but I'm not managing to upload the presentation. So maybe Giovanni can do that for me. And
I can do it.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Just not to waste time. I'm sorry because I've been teaching until 2 and I am 1 hour driving from home. So I've been rushing and I'm not fully organized, and I apologize. First of all, thank you for giving me. Yeah, thank you. I see it. Thanks. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. As Giovanni was saying, I first went to the island of Dominica in 2015 to as a trainer of trainers in a project of the Florence University, of the Department of Architecture in particular, and landscape planning, for trainers of in high schools and university concerning the value of territorial heritage for resilience and sustainable development. And that's how I got in contact with the Kalinago Community Tourism Organization, and I then developed within under the umbrella of Archimedia Trust Onlus, for which I work, an MOU aimed at sustaining and supporting, especially after the Erika and Mariah hurricanes, the reprisal and recovery of tourism in Dominica. The history of the Kalinago community is quite peculiar. It's is the last, let's say, indigenous community of the islands, since the rest, of course, as everybody knows, were wiped out very, very early after the discovery of the region. And they had the opportunity of maintaining certain continuity in inhabiting the island. The first, historically, because the island itself was very resilient to colonization. If Giovanni can go one slide down, yeah, we can see, in fact, that due to the characteristic of the island, the Kalinagos could actually held off colonizers for many, many centuries. In fact, the same colonizer, the British and French colonizers that have been fighting over the island for a while, actually signed a treaty to leave the island to the indigenous people. But the following years, the pressure was too high, so that basically, can you go down, Giovanni, please? So that basically, when it became under the British control, they basically were pushed in a sort of reserve. Actually, in 1903, this reserve was juridically acknowledged as Carib Reserve. And from this point onwards, all the authorities, also after independence, acknowledged this land as belonging to the community of the Kalinago people. It's interesting to notice that actually the Kalinago people are the only indigenous people, as I was mentioning, in the Caribbean area that are structured also in terms of statute as an indigenous community. After independence, there was a period of after the whole economy was based on bananas marketing, but then there was a big crisis in the banana market in the late 80s, and that brought to a collapse of the economy. In this situation, tourism, and especially community tourism and cultural tourism, played an important role for the recovery, socioeconomic recovery of the Kalinago community. There is also, in fact, an European community funded project called Kalinago Banata Aute, which is a sort of reconstruction of a traditional village where people can also go for a guided visit, where the Kalinago, some Kalinago guides show, for example, traditional plants and explain how they were used also for medical application, etc. They have a traditional restaurant because they use local products to produce special food exclusive to the Kalinago. And so basically, one of the main, as I was saying, one of the main conditions for the Kalinago to maintain their culture was the direct control of the physical territory intended as a communal ownership. These forced them somehow also in times of crisis and of social fragmentation to find a cohesion and consensus around collective choices and help to keep the community together. That was also true in recent critical moments in the aftermath of Erika tropical storm in 2015, and followed short after by Hurricane Maria in 2017. That's when we decided to support Kalinago project to reestablish the craft market, which is for them one of the main income sources. They also have a couple of guest houses, but of course, in the recent years, tourism, due to this, the instability of climate conditions, was impacted negatively on the island, which is very wild and not the classic Caribbean white beach island. Is very rugged and the climate also is quite rough, very prone to storms. Our project was based on we had a small grant to reconstruct basically what was destroyed by the hurricane, in order, because it was one of the few sources of economic benefit for them. But beside that, also the fact of attracting tourists and the popularity of the craft works induced the government to invest in the territory in terms of infrastructure, which were very poor before, and are still quite poor, but I mean, at least there is some investment on that. Yes, of course, there is always a risk in tourism, in cultural tourism, which is the one of reification because of market pressure, or somehow putting on stage or staging identities. But in the case of I mean, in the case of the Kalinago, since they themselves, maybe Giovanni, if we can go one slide before, I guess. Yes, one of the main symbols of their ethnicity for the Kalinago is beside a sense of shared history, and also, for example, the Kalinago chief office, which was always there, is also that the savoir-faire, as we can say, the practical knowledge attached not only to the making of traditional crafts, but of course to the knowledge of materials, that are only local, etc. So that's one of they themselves identify with this type of practice. So they don't perceive as being self-ascripted or not authentic and staged. So in that sense, tourism can be a resource rather than a disruptive engine or force, and an alternative to basically poverty and emargination. Thank you. I don't know if Giovanni wants to add something, because we are both involved in the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. Well, I think, well, thank you very much for the presentation. I think we should give the floor now a bit to the audience and probably answer the questions. Certainly, we will have to comment more on this case study. Just as a final say and a final word on this presentation, yes, there is I mean, I can see a red thread that is linking the various representation of today, and probably the whole presentation that will be displayed in this month for the natural disasters and pandemics at the seminar organized by the university, or the Catholic University in Chile, which is really the one of the communities as having a twofold role or anyway they found themselves in a sort of dichotomy. On one hand, they are the guardians of this heritage. They are those who without who the heritage is basically becoming meaningless. And on the other hand, those communities are those that are paying the highest price in terms of marginalization, as you said, poverty, or other negative effects that are brought in their communities by a global or globalized movements, including tourism, for instance, that that can play a benefit role, but at the same time can also be very destructive. This is just as a closing remark. I now would like to give the floor to the audience, to the question and answer time. I think we have a bit less than half an hour, which I hope will be sufficient to discuss the 5 case studies. Thank you very much. Maybe here, either Umberto or Mike would like also to intervene to mobilize the question and answer. I really encourage the participants to place the questions to the 5 speakers. Thank you.
Giovanni, sorry.
Olympia.
Giovanni, sorry, but only on consideration, because I appreciate very much the presentation of our friend from Azerbaijan, because this experience for me is very interesting also for a comparison studies from other situations. In this period, I'm working in Japan, in Sado Island, and here there are very similar villages. And I am very interesting to establish a contact also with our friend, because I think very important this opportunity to start also comparison studies. I don't know if our friend, but I don't remember the name, sorry.
Rizvan.
Isvan, okay, agree. Because this experience today has been very important also to realize future comparison studies or in project research project.
Rizvan, you can react.
Yes, thanks. Thanks, Olympia. And really, we are, and personally, I am at your disposal, and we are ready to work with you and to do some analysis together. And I think that your involvement for preservation of our heritage, and especially the just and liberated areas, will be really useful for all of us.
Oh, thank you very, very much. Thank you. Thank you. Good, because today
one of the purposes of this type of experiences, of this type of events, is the one actually to create connectivity between the different regions of the world. Also because we have, as you said, very important benefits from comparison and exchanging of lessons learned from different areas of the world. I see that Claudio Cimino has a question now for Dr. George Abungu. Claudio, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, actually, practically all presentations were interesting, but I mean, I would like to ask George about the issue of the archaeological missions that are going to Sudan. To his experience, who is issuing the permit to excavation for these people to go, and how is it regulated? Is there a regulatory policy? I mean, how does it work? In other countries, there is a Department of Antiquities or something like that, that sort of identifies areas. But I mean, I understand that Sudan has a different situation. I understand that there were several years or difficulties, let's say difficult management. So I do not pretend that there is a Department of Antiquity, but my question is are there authorities that control this movement? Because the archaeological missions normally settle and they have a plan for excavation. These are normally long-term plans, unless they do wild excavation, and sometimes we call them rapina excavation. I don't know how do you call it in the rapina, but I mean substantially robbery excavation, just go, take and go. And so, I mean, I would like just to have a clarification about how is it regulated, archaeology in Sudan, in the area that you know. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Claudio. That's a good question. Yes, I mean, there are laws and regulations in Sudan. Sudan has been an independent country, I think, since 1956. What I find that has not changed so much is the way the missions have embedded themselves in the system. There is what is called the National Commission for Antiquities and Monuments, which is in charge of, and museums, not monuments, and museums, National Commission for Antiquities and Museums, which is in charge of those museums and all the monuments. And Sudan is very, very rich in monuments. I mean, in terms of pyramids, it's comparable to Egypt. And don't forget that Sudan, during the Kush time and other times, also ruled Egypt. So they have been very, very close together. Most people don't know. Egypt has been open for many years, and so people move in and out, and so they know a lot. But I think Sudan is really the jewel of the continent that people are going to find. But if you want to see the impact of what you call the robber archaeologists, in the 1920s and 30s, most of those pyramids, particularly in Meroe, they don't have the sharp edge at the top. You will see that they have been cut because they were looking for treasures. So most of these so-called engineers and surveyors and so on who visited claiming to do professional work went basically to look for antiquities, and a lot have been restored. But what has happened is that the missions are from universities mostly. And these universities have got a very long tradition. Some of those traditions go about 100 years of mission. And it has become like a tradition, part of the system of the Sudanese operation. That missions come every year in a particular time. They spend, that is in the winter in Sudan when it's not hot, because it gets very hot, so you can't work in summer. When I think it is sort of winter on the other side. And they work for about 3 to 4 months. And they are involved in large-scale excavations of monuments, like, digging around any of those Amun temples. That is like a football pitch, It's basically civil engineering work. So it's moving huge amounts of material. It's not these excavations where you dig by little spoons and shovels and all that kind of stuff. And it has been tradition that every institution from a particular country is allocated a particular part of a site or a site. And so they dominate that. And they've been there for 50 years, 60 years, 70 years, 100 years. And you know the German section of Cologne, the University of Michigan is here, and this is here, and so on. So it's just a tradition, and everything is done the way it has always been done. So I think that there has never been a major change. But of course, they have to get their long-term licenses from the National Commission of Antiquities and Museums. But there has been what I would see as a mindset change. The process is been going on, and it continues to go on like that. While in other countries, there have been rules and regulations of what you can do. including in some countries that you have to produce a number of professional students. So if you're carrying out excavation, you may have to produce 5 master students and 1 PhD student after 5 years or so. In Sudan, I think it's more or less the goodwill of the missions that they do that. So I don't think it's lack of structures or lack of legal, frameworks and such things, but it's just the continuation of the tradition that has been going on. And everybody in the village is always excited about the missions coming, when the missions are arriving. And those in the villages, especially the small villages, those who have made it are people who have worked in the excavations. These are the people who you see have a pickup, driving a pickup or have a good house. So it's like, that is where the job comes from and nobody questions that. So I think it's a question of tradition more than a set structure.
Thank you very much, George, for the answer. Yes, I also would like to say that, I've been to Sudan recently, and yes, indeed, the situation is alarming for certain reasons, but there is a system in place, and certainly the local authorities are doing their best in preservation. Thank you very much. The questions can be written in the chat if you prefer, and then I can read them, or being directly presented by the speakers. Maybe I see Rizvan. Maybe Rizvan would like to, he has a question for someone. Mike, I see, because I don't see everyone. Michael Turner has a question, yes. Please, Mike, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you. I think it's really some really exciting presentations here. And I'm trying to really think exactly what is the lesson I need to learn from this. And of course, we're talking about different sorts of disasters. There's enormous connections of people. We say heartwarming to see exactly how global activities take place and barriers are actually taken down. So if we were to say that in Sudan, with the or something like that would take place, there'd be sort of a greater understanding. And similarly, in our part of the world, if there was to be an earthquake, again, people would rally round and actually do something about it. So I think that the issue of what I have to learn about is that it's people to people. Olympia also, the her example was really incredible, that exactly how people get involved. And again, in Mero, as George was saying, it's the villagers themselves. So I think that we actually have to discuss how, in fact, we use this to go forward. So if I was to say, therefore, I'm looking at peace parks, or I'm looking at the way of then how, in fact, we can actually create then a balance of activities which are good at the time of peace, and also which is also good at the time of ordinary times before disaster strikes. So when we start coming together in ordinary, when the disaster says, it won't be a problem to come together. So I would say that the challenge to us is to try to go beyond these barriers and try to find where, in fact, we can join together. So the paths that Hassan was saying go onto far larger areas, which perhaps we could get some Israelis to be involved with. And I think that in this way, we could actually then get people to come together and actually make solving problems. Just for the record, perhaps, I was giving expert evidence to the High Court in Israel to prevent that the boundary wall, which in fact Hassan had indicated, which would completely destroy the outstanding universal value, as he had mentioned. And I think that this is exactly where support and activities take place at a people-to-people level, gives us exactly what our World Heritage should be doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mike. Thank you very much. I don't have the full screen in front of me, but I can scroll through the bar here with the people if you want to raise your hands, or you can write in the chat. Thank you. Let me
Fernando
stimulate Umberto.
Fernando raised the hand.
I have one
raise
question.
hand. Sorry?
Yep.
Fernando
Perez. Yep.
Sorry, I didn't see.
Yes.
Fernando,
yes.
please.
I have a kind of commentary and also an open question to everybody, because perhaps, well, very fascinating cases, all we have seen today, but perhaps in the case of Palestine, where that kind of heritage is involved with daily life and work, many of the cases are addressed to tourism as a kind of target of the conservation. So I would ask to everybody, do you envisage other kind of connection of community, community and heritage, which is a bit less connected with tourism?
Who would like to answer?
Perhaps it's a difficult question.
Yes, perhaps. Well, if I understood correctly, you pointed out the fact that, you know, in all these cases, there is a sort of commonality, right? Which is the one given by the fact that the communities at a certain point are interested or involved in an exchange with the outer world. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And how these communities are interacting with that, right?
So the could be the interest of communities in that kind of heritage be something different that being guides or producing handicrafts to sell.
Well, I don't know if someone wants to answer this question from the speakers, but I mean, I can say that, of course, from my personal point of view, I always worked, especially when I was in UNESCO projects, to involve the community not only as a merely tour guides or you know, souvenir people, or you know, people who are working in the tourism sector, but engaging them in first person to preserve the site and to be part of a larger project and program. Certainly the interaction between the local community and the international community should go beyond the sector of tourism. Although tourism in the last few probably decades, a couple of decades, started to be more responsible, more sustainable, more durable, and environmentally friendly. But the real experience of the two communities together happens when there is a stake, there is an interest that is in common with the two communities, which is not happening when let's say the foreign community is visiting a site only for a few days or few weeks. This is my personal opinion. I don't know if someone wants to comment on that. In the case of Battir, in the case of Palestine, the international community really joined forces, and in this case it was two communities, the Israeli and the Palestinian, who, well, part of that is Israeli and the Palestinian, who joined forces together with the international community to preserve the site, which today is still at jeopardy. But in other cases, it's more difficult to achieve these results because of the sort of fracture that exists in between the local and the international communities. Maybe someone would like to comment. We have Claudia, who's an anthropologist, and certainly she has her her point of view. Then Claudio has another question, or maybe you would like to comment on this same question. Claudio, then, if not Claudia, we give the floor to Claudio. Claudio, you raised your hand, please. You have the floor.
Well, I mean, I don't think we can really normalize and say that there is a standard case. I mean, wherever you go, the communities have different traditions, they have different history in the field of cultural heritage. Sometimes they're very new into the development of heritage as a mean for developing their own possibilities. I mean, socially, economically. So I mean, it's relatively recent. Normally, somebody else used to develop the sites, and then somebody else was promoting tourism. Often, like the case of Petra or so many other cases, the local communities are distanced from the site. And just because the idea was to develop the sites as if it was something else, sort of a piece of territory that was expropriated for the purpose of promoting tourism. And it's very recent, relatively very recent, if we think of the tourism industry when it started long ago, more than 100 years ago, in terms of a structured industry. So I don't think we can really make reference to an example as a standard. But yes, there are, when the community participates, when the community is involved, I think that the meeting between the international communities and the local communities is easier, because there is a mutual understanding, there is a more keenness. I remember when, for instance, in Uruguay, the people used to leave from Uruguay to come to Europe, and they were receiving training. I mean, they used, the travel agents used to organize their trips. And within the tickets that they used to make, the agents used to prepare, sort of giving lecture of what they would have visited and the community they would have met and how to behave in Europe. So it was really particular, this. I never saw this again. But that was 40 years ago. So that, I mean, they used to really, since the trip used to be long for a long time, they used to stay longer than a week in Europe, and because it was also very expensive. I mean, they used to receive a training of what to see, what to eat, and how to relate to the community, what the history was. I don't know. I mean, perhaps it's a matter also preparing for that, to prepare the ground. The examples that we have seen are very, very significant, I find, because they explain it basically. It's the way to do, I think.
Thank you very much, Claudio. Now, since it is 4,
shortly. Yeah.
Claudia, yes, please. Yes, I asked you to interview before.
I think that basically what can make the difference in the case of community participation is to encourage a sense of ownership from the community, which prevents a little bit the other risk, the risk embedded in mass tourism, which is the one of stereotypization and all these other side effects. Moreover, for example, in the case of Batir that Hassan mentioned and me and Giovanni we worked at also, sometimes it can be a strategy to attract attention. Like in the case of the Kalinago, if they didn't have tourism as a resource, the government wouldn't have invested money on the territory to develop it and make it livable, basically. So I think it's always also very depending on the situation, the conditions, and very contextual and in an ever-changing environment, basically. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. Yes, I would like to ask maybe Umberto, who didn't take the floor until now in the question and answer time, because we are exactly 2 hours after the start of the seminar, and I would like to give to him the closing remarks. And I really wish to thank you for the participation in this event, in particular the 5 speakers, which I repeat in sparse order: Olimpia Niglio, Rizwan Bayremov, Claudia Cancellotti, Giorgia Bungu, and Hassan Moamer, of course, and Hassan Moamer from Palestine. Thank you very much. Umberto, maybe you would like to have a word for the wrap up. Thank you. It was very, very exciting and useful. Thanks a lot. Umberto, you are muted unless probably Umberto is busy right now. I don't know if there is any other question we can. Oh, okay, Umberto is back. Umberto is back. Yes, you are there.
No, I would like to try to add something to what Fernando proposed, and I think that if we plan an alternative way to have a relationship with the site and communities, maybe it's necessary to manage it in a wider range and in a deeper way, to create to have a programs of education to generate new economic possibilities or works for the communities involved in World Heritage Sites. That in that sense they will have opportunities, different opportunities to have a specific relationship with the site, not only the most easy and easy and powerful, and that is tourism or the economics related with tourism. I think that it's a very big challenge, because it involves many different aspects of economic of the place and administration of the countries. Different kind of ministry, for example, education, economy, works, and health, and so on. It's unfortunately, tourism is the easiest way to have a relationship with the sites, and but for the future, I think shouldn't be the only way and the only relationship.
Thank you very much, Umberto. Thank you very much. I guess that we shall declare the session closed now. And I really thank you again, all the participants. And I also hope that some connection will be now active in between various parts of the world in order to enhance and better preserve our world heritage. Thank you very much. Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you.
See you. See you. Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Ciao, gracias. Bye.
No,
Stay
gracias.
safe.
Thank you. See you tomorrow.
Bye.